today we're going to talk about cowboys and horses, and especially what makes an ideal ranch horse. Probably the first thing to start with is that the ranch horse is still the very best tool that we have to work with cattle, especially on ranches in the American West. Now, there are parts of the country where you can do some work on four-wheelers or with feed trucks or alternative methods, but anytime that you have rough country, and especially on ranches in the American West, the horse is still the very best tool that we have to get the work done that we need to do on a cattle ranch. And so that includes being able to round up our cattle, to be able to take them to market, or be able to catch a sick calf or a sick cow and be able to medicate it and give it the medicines that it really needs. It may include being able to rope a calf in order to brand it and do all the things that we need to keep our cattle healthy, but also to get the work done and get them to market and ultimately make our ranch a successful business. And so the horse is our tool to do that, and especially the American quarter horse has been bred and raised in order to be a great partner on the ranch. This horse was actually the first breed of horse that was native to the United States of America, and they were traditionally crossed with Spanish barb horses that were imported obviously by the Spanish, and then improved by the Cherokee and Choctaw Indians in the southeast portion of the United States. Then when English colonists came over, they began to cross those horses with English thoroughbred stallions. And so they got a horse that was a little bigger, had a little bit more endurance, but still maintained the athleticism, the quickness, and the speed of those Spanish barb Choctaw horses. And so the American quarter horse really came into his own, or initiated in the American colonies in the early 1700s. They're called quarter horses because obviously English and the colonists, as they came over, had a propensity and a love for horse racing. Now in England, and the thoroughbred would often run 2 to 3 miles at that time. But in the colonies, you didn't have that much space, and so a lot of times the only place that was straight and level enough for a race was right down the middle of the town. And so these horses really became sprinters and were bred to be sprinters and ran typically at 1/4 mile, thus the name quarter horse. But as the colonists began to move west, the horse went with them. And the horse began to be interbred with Mustangs, more Spanish horses that had come up from Mexico, and then really a distinct breed started to develop called the American quarter horse. And so this horse really came into his own on the ranches in the American West, because they discovered that athleticism, the quickness, and the speed adapted most perfectly to become a great ranch horse. And so these horses were bred on ranches. Those qualities were developed and improved over time, and these horses also developed what we call cow sense. And that's the ability to actually read a cow and be able to help me and be my partner as we go and do our work. And so he's obviously another set of eyes, he's another set of ears, he has incredible sense of smell, and so especially if we're hunting wild cattle or if we're sorting cattle, this horse really is my partner, and he can do a lot of the work on his own, and we train them to do that, but it's also instinctually bred into them, and it becomes an instinct for them to have that cow sense. So that's kind of how the breed developed, and how ranch horses, and on the ranches of the American West, probably 95% of the horses that you would find are probably American quarter horses or from quarter horse bloodlines. Almost all the horses that you would see in the timed event portion of a rodeo arena, so the calf roping horses or the steer wrestling horses or the team roping horses are almost all American quarter horses. So the breed was raised to do that, and has those innate qualities that we've bred into them, and that they've been able to gain over a couple of hundred years of selective breeding. But there's also some ideal qualities that we look for in a quarter horse. As you can see, Mr. is about 15 hands tall, which 4 inches is a hand, so he's right at 60 inches tall, and he really is a great size for a ranch horse. There can be variation in size, and so it's obviously some larger folks and larger cowboys would prefer to have a little larger horse. We might use a little larger horse if we were going to go rope bulls or use a little stronger cattle, but he's a great average size. He probably weighs about 1,100 pounds, which is also a great size, but as you can look at him, he's built more like a sprinter. And so you can see he's got a heavily muscled chest and a heavily muscled forearm. He's got a distinct hip and a strong stifle, and so all of that muscularity helps him in the jobs that we have to do on a ranch, and enables him. This horse can turn on a dime and give you change, as the old saying goes. And so he has tremendous athleticism. He's built to go and do a hard day's work. We've also built a tremendous amount of endurance into these horses, so depending on what we're doing, he can carry me all day long and still maintain his weight, maintain his condition, and get a hard day's work done. He is what we look for in an ideal ranch horse, one that's called an easy keeper or an easy doer, one that can maintain his weight and conditioning just on pasture alone or with a small supplementation of grain when we're using horses on the ranch. And so we do look after their nutrition and make sure that they're getting all of the nutrients that they require on a daily basis. You know, we also want them to be able to forage and make do with the ranch that we have on the grass already, so we don't have to supplement them too much. We try to avoid horses that are called hard keepers, that are just you know, stay leaner and don't do as well. The other thing that we look for, probably most important in addition to the speed and athleticism, is we want willing dispositions. And so we look for a horse that has a willing attitude. And so you can tell by Mr. that he's very alert, even though he's very calm, and there are people walking by and there's other things going on. There's a mower here in the background. And you can tell that he pays attention to those things, and you can tell that by he'll look around occasionally. He may move his ears so that he can listen to a sound. He's going to listen to me periodically. But you can also tell that he stays calm during all of those things and maintains just a willing disposition. As a part of that, we look for a horse that has a soft mouth, as we described it, so that I can just barely move this bit in his mouth and he can tell that and feel it and change direction or go where we need to go in order to move a cow or head off a cow. And so we look for one that's very willing, has a very soft mouth, and we don't want one that has a hard mouth that's going to push through the bit or show resistance or fight us all the time. One, we can't get the work done we need to get done if we're running past a cow because the horse has you know, gotten hard-mouthed on us, and so we really work on maintaining a willing attitude. We train these horses and we try to do it in such a way that they want to go do the job, and they use those natural instincts to be able to get the job done. The other thing that we look for in our quarter horse ranch horse is we want them to have a thick hide. We want them to have you know, the ability to be ridden all day without getting saddle sores. So we take great care that we find saddles that fit our horses. We use excellent saddle pads, but we also want horses that naturally resist getting saddle sores or getting scraped up when we're riding through brush. And so the thick hide is really important. One other thing that we look for that you can tell that Mr. has is he actually has a dark hide, and that can be an advantage so that he doesn't get sunburned. And so even though he's white in color, you can tell that his skin is black. We do ride and have light-hided horses, but sometimes you have to take other measures just to protect those horses with sunscreen or things like that. We also look for a horse that has hard hooves, and so typically the hooves that are harder are typically darker. And so on Mr. you can tell that he has dark hooves. He's very hard. I do keep this horse shod, and if we're riding through the rocks a lot, we still may want to keep a shoe on our horse, but we want a horse that naturally keeps a hard hoof and is able to maintain himself through the work that we're doing on the ranch or in the show pen. So to conclude, I really want to just emphasize that you know, the horse is a tool, and he is still the very best tool that we have to get the work done on the ranch. But it is also part of our lifestyle and part of the tradition that we have. You know, when you have a great American quarter horse underneath you who is your partner, you know, it makes the day's work even better. And cowboys and ranches take tremendous pride in their horses, and being able to do a day's work to keep this horse and make sure that he has a great career, that they have a long lifespan working on the ranch. This horse is 23 years old, and I've still been using him to brand and do a day's work on the ranch. And so he's been a great partner for a long time. And so we just appreciate our horses. They're part of what our lifestyle is, and it'll be part of the tradition for a long time to come.